Hey, Eco Evo. I am about to go on a little hike with my family. Say hi, Maddie. And so I know that some of you maybe aren't super familiar with exploring the woods, exploring nature, so I thought I would try and put together a little video just to show you what one of these iNaturalist nature walks might look like. In the first couple minutes of this hike, we've already seen mosses, lichens, angiosperms, and gymnosperms, as well as ferns. So all of our main plant groups and plant-like things. Okay, so here is a fern. Those pine needles next to it, that's a gymnosperm. These other leaves and this large oak tree are angiosperms. On this oak tree we see lichens, which are technically not plants. And if I go a little closer, I bet I will see some mosses here at the bottom. Yeah, so the whiter things there are lichen. This green, darker green is moss there. So even just right here, we see our non-vascular plants, the mosses, our seedless vascular plants, the ferns, angiosperms, and gymnosperms. Not a bad way to spend a morning. And if you get up really early, the trails are much more likely to be empty. So I just found this on the ground. It is dried up, what's called an oak gall. And so there are some insects that lay their eggs inside parts of a tree or different kinds of plants, in this case an oak. And so then the tree, in effect, its way of making a scab is to sort of seal off that insect egg, and the larva develops inside and it falls off the tree, and then emerges from a hole in the bottom. So I'll see if I can find a more green one as I go along. But if you see these brown balls, that's probably an oak gall. Okay, so I found one of these bright colored galls and I opened it up, and you should be able to see in it a little larva there in the middle. There's the little larva moving around.
How many legs did that dog have? Were you paying attention?
So this is a patch of ferns, and remember, ferns are a representative of our seedless vascular plants, and at some times in the year you can look on hi, thanks. At some points in the year, if you flip over the ferns and look at the bottom underneath, you'll see the places where they produce their sperms. So you would see like brown patches, a series of little brown dots on the underside of ferns. So if you're walking in the woods and you see some ferns, check underneath and see if they are producing spores. No spores. No, sorry.
Acorns.
One way to find insects that you might not otherwise see when you're hiking is to take a rock or a dead branch and flip it over. So I'm hoping that if I flip this up, we'll see some interesting insects underneath. So you can see some small things crawling around. I can't tell exactly what they are. And you can see that these leaves are starting to look more like soil. So there's some what looks like white mold. There's some fungi decomposing in here. You can see one of these old acorns has been broken down. You can see a lot of these leaves are being eaten. So there is a fascinating world, set of processes, group of organisms, very busy, turning all of this leaf litter back into soil so that the carbon and nitrogen and sulfur can be reused by other plants. Don't ignore big rocks when you're out looking around. This might just look like a boring gray rock, but if you get a little closer, you're going to see this patchwork is all lichen. There are, if you go over here, there are these teeny little tufts of moss. And then there's this bigger lichen here. Different kinds of lichen. Two of these green lichens that have different shapes, different morphologies. And then over here, There's this lichen that has those brown cup shapes. I think this is one of the ways. I think that lichen can make these structures to produce spores, but I will double check, and if that's not true, I won't put that part in the video. I don't know what this mushroom is, but there are all sorts of insects flying around it. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know much about birds, but I do like listening for different bird songs. Someday I'll get better at bird ID. I don't know what has been eating these oak leaves, but you can see that the pattern that is left behind is the pattern of the veins that were running through the leaves. That must be a harder thing to chomp than the yummy green bits here. But it is beautiful, isn't it? I don't know. I think it's beautiful. You are welcome to disagree. Okay, Maddie, go ahead. What do you want to tell my class?
This is horse poop, and you can see it's been eating hay because those needles are leftovers of the hay. And horses eat a lot, and that's why they're big. Oh, and do you see that?
Yeah, Maddie, don't touch it.
What, babe?
There's some kind of bug.
Bugs in the horse poop. That's cool.
No.
I think this is interesting. I think this is a different type of lichen. It's pretty dry and crusty, and it's growing right next to this moss. I just love these little moss forests. So we've got the two different types of reproductive structures. Got a whole lot going on here. After the sporulation process has happened, you'll see these little cups will be open. So I don't think these have released their spores yet. So light is actually a limiting resource in the understory, the sort of ground level of a forest. And so you can see all of these little seedlings, plants here, there's a decent amount of space, but if these little plants don't get enough light from above, they're not going to grow into large trees. And sometimes that can't happen until one of these large trees falls over and makes some more space for a new generation of larger trees to grow up into the canopy. Oh, it smells beautiful in here. I gotta figure out what flower. I think it's these. I don't know what these are, but they smell beautiful. My daughter is very excited about finding frogs in this pond up ahead. So here's that tree again, and here's the roots that you can see. You can see not only physically how much soil that those roots must have been holding on to, and you can see now that they've provided a space for these ferns to start to grow out of on the underside of the tree. There is some. That bee was very happy in that flower. I didn't even notice. There's a frog right there. More pollination going on. How many frogs can you count? I think we've seen about 20 so far. I love dragonflies.
We could find.
They're these ancient evolutionary designs. They're sort of like helicopters. They're beautiful. What's not to love? Oh, it's letting me get so close. That's so exciting. Okay, so down here by the pond again, I see one, there's two, there's quite a few of these tree stumps that look, oh, this one right here, that look like they were cut by beaver. So maybe a lot of these down trees over here are because of beaver.